I love Charles Davis, and I love having him on the show. Good to speak with you, Charles.
Good to speak with you, Rich. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right, I'm going to ask you the poll question. Brockman, ask it of Charles Davis, please.
All right, CFD, who had the most impressive combine performance? Myles Garrett, John Ross, Jabril Peppers, Christian McCaffrey, Deshaun Watson.
What do you think, Charles?
Jabril Peppers, because he did it twice. I mean, and the way he did it with the humor, the joy. Rich, what I thought you guys brought out of him in the interview, and obviously it's in him already, but I just thought it was just incredible. I thought that was like one of the moments of all the combines I've done to see that kid. And then, a lot of kids, as you well know, would have been like, well, I'm not a linebacker. Why am I here having to do this? I'm a defensive back. He could have been surly. He could have been ticked off. It's like, okay, well, that's what I have to do, but I want to do the defensive back stuff too. Oh, okay. And he did it. Now, all the other guys were impressive, but put it all together, give me Peppers.
Yeah, I mean, and he also wanted to do the 40-yard dash and the broad and the verts with the defensive backs group again, and the combine said, no, you're not allowed to get – well, there's only one person that gets a third or fourth bite at the 40-yard dash apple, and that's me when I'm running mine to try and run faster. But they told him he could not do that. All that said, Myles Garrett, to me, is the first overall selection in this draft, without a doubt. What do you think, Charles?
I don't have any question about that either. I think he's a top guy. I do know that, having sat around and discussed it with a few different people, the concern of, hey, what about last year? And he got 4.5 sacks against Texas San Antonio. Are we worried that he's a flurry guy? I said, well, why don't you check his freshman, sophomore years where he was double digits both years. Remember, he played hurt last year, had a bad ankle early in the season, and kept answering the bell. I don't have any doubt that he's a top prospect coming out. The only problem for Cleveland Browns fans, and let's face it, every time we talk about this with the Browns, they're going to cite you an example of, yeah, it looks really great. Remember Courtney Brown, Penn State? Number 1 defensive end coming out. He was a top overall guy. Didn't work out for him. So the Browns can always find misery, even when they should be finding joy. But I like Garrett. I'm with you.
So then let's just assume he is the number 1 overall selection. I was asked on Twitter yesterday, and I don't have the answer to this question. Who's 2? Who's number 2 in this draft, Charles?
Well, 2 may not be the player. 2 may be determined by what San Francisco decides they absolutely have to have. Because if Kyle Shanahan falls in love with a quarterback and they decide we're not going to wait, that we're going to take this shot with a brand new coach, with a 6-year contract, a brand new GM with a 6-year contract, they may have a little more cachet to get one of these quarterbacks out of this draft that we wouldn't rate as highly and say we've got a little time to develop him. And if Shanahan feels that way, then number 2 may be one of those quarterbacks and not necessarily the best player. And that's what's going to be interesting, because you can go a bunch of different ways, and we always have debates about, do you go take a safety that high? Most of the time you don't. But I believe the Browns did years ago, a guy named Eric Turner. So I always come back to the Browns because they're so much fun to talk about. But the 49ers have a GM who was a big-time safety. So would a Jamal Adams go that high? Would a Malik Hooker go that high? Or would they decide to go, again, in a different direction and maybe get one of those defensive backs? Who knows? But all I'm saying is the 49ers may be the first domino in terms of quarterback if the Browns don't go in that direction.
Well, I mean, Charles Davis here on the Rich Eisen Show. Hooker is a fascinating conversation, and Mike Mayock and I and you and DJ had it yesterday during our defensive backs coverage, is that with his injury that he's not going to be working out for anybody prior to April 27th. So somebody's going to have to draft him sight unseen with a workout. I mean, obviously there's tape. Yeah. Obviously there's a look somebody in the eye and have a conversation in an interview. But I know he's number 2 on so many other people's top prospects board. Do you think somebody could pull the trigger on him top 5 without having worked him out, Charles?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do, because we've seen this before, and the prevailing thought, I think, would be a team that's pretty well established, has players, can afford to wait a little bit longer. That'd be the right landing point. Remember when the 49ers were redshirting all those guys in later rounds? They take the guys with the injuries and take them. And well, they were very good at that time, so they could afford. Now, not any of those. I don't know that any of those guys really have hit well. Tank Carradine is still around. Marcus Lattimore's out of the league. But here's the flip side of that. You're not very good to begin with. All right, so you're not. It's not like drafting at the top. You're thinking that you're going right to the playoffs. Although your fans are saying, "Is this the guy that gets us right to the playoffs?" Maybe you take him, even if he's not ready at the beginning of the year, for the long-term possibility of it. So yes, early in this draft, look at everybody. San Francisco definitely needs secondary help. Okay, Cleveland needs secondary help. Go right on down the line.
Bears.
You got to have the Bears. I mean, name the Bears starting safeties right now.
No,
right?
I'm with you. Jets. The Jets. Revis Island is toast, as we all know, and they're still waiting for the Louisville slugger Calvin Pryor to start showing up, and then. No, I mean, we could go on and on about that.
Go on and on.
I asked Mike what the odds were that we could go top 10 without an offensive lineman or a quarterback being taken. I mean, that's entirely possible based with everything that we've seen with all the other positions showing up like they did at the Combine, Charles.
And the last time we did that, Rich, wasn't that like 1974?
74. Last time 74. That happened. Uh-huh.
Last time did that happen. And because the offensive linemen this year, it's a quote-unquote down year. You remember the last time we had it where there weren't great players at other positions, and they went super heavy offensive line in the top 10 where we were taking guards and tackles in the top 10, and that didn't really pan out that well. Remember, Jonathan Cooper went in the top 10, DJ Fluker's top 10, and right on down the line. In this case now, no one's going to reach on linemen at all, and you may not have to touch them in the top 10 as you noted. So this could be a whole lot of fun come draft day if no one pulls the trigger on quarterbacks. But let's face it. Do we really believe no one's going to pull the trigger on a quarterback in top 10?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I saw all those kids this weekend. They're game changers in their own right.
Yep.
And then you've got to take a look at, obviously you can't pick and choose who the next Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott's going to be, but I'll still ask you that anyway, Charles Davis. Who do you think out of this group, third, fourth round, could suddenly be the guy who changes the fortune of a franchise around from this quarterback group, if you had to choose one?
Oh, boy. If I'm going third, fourth round, if a guy gets down there, I would have said Mahomes, but he's not going to get that far.
He's not going to get
that far. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going deeper, could Davis Webb be the guy that goes a little bit later and becomes a big arm guy who can throw the football? I think a lot of people are locked in on Nate Peterman to kind of be that guy. And I thought it was interesting as heck at the Combine. Here's Nate Peterman, who's getting way more attention, way more buzz coming out of Pitt. He was a Tennessee transfer who lost his job at Tennessee to Josh Dobbs.
Yeah,
now, Dobbs not nearly as highly regarded as Nate Peterman going into this draft. It just tells you the differences in colleges and offenses that Dobbs fit better what they wanted to do at Tennessee than Peterman did. Yet Peterman is a better pro prospect.
Charles, stay by the phone. I'm going to be calling you a lot over the next few weeks. And thanks, as always, for treating me gently on the simulcam portion of Run, Rich, Run. I appreciate
Rich,
it.
in all seriousness, it's one of the best things of the Combine each and every year because of what you do for those kids at St. Jude's.
Thanks.
To me, one of the best moments was seeing you with that young man, Brendan.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Charles. Thanks, bud. I appreciate it. You got it. That's Charles Davis of the NFL Network.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.